Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Christensen. This is Horror 101 with Dr. AC, celebrating classic horror throughout history with new episodes every Friday night. Making its small screen bow on the cable channel Showtime in October 2005, Masters of Horror was a horror anthology series like none before. Created by Mick Garris, the show brought together some of the most renowned names in horror filmmaking to direct hour-long episodes that showcase their unique visions. Predating the wave of multi-voiced anthology films like VHS and ABCs of Death, each episode was a self-contained story, with genre icons such as John Carpenter, Dario Argento, Tobe Hooper, Stuart Gordon, John Landis, Joe Dante, and Don Coscarelli, alongside newer voices Lucky McKee and Takashi Miike, exploring different themes and scenarios ranging from supernatural terror to the murderer next door. The concept behind the series emerged from informal dinners hosted by Garris, with established horror directors sharing ideas and mutual admiration for one another, as well as discussing the genre's rich history and diversity. The first season, featuring 13 episodes from 13 directors, received praise for its bold storytelling and atmospheric tension, pushing the boundaries of cable television, delivering graphic content that rivaled R-rated horror films, and giving these horror auteurs a creative freedom rarely found, especially on television. 20 years later, Masters of Horror remains a cult favorite, ripe for rediscovery by a new generation. A bold, artistic experiment that ended up being a cultural, critical, and commercial success for Mick Garris and his merry band of nightmare makers. 13 is the luckiest of numbers. Going to be talking Masters of Horror Season 1, celebrating its 20th anniversary, and we've got an awesome panel to chat about it with me. Let's bring everybody in, and let's say hello to JK from Horror Happens.
How are you, AC?
My pal from down the street in Chicago, Tim Pallas.
How's it going, everyone? Good to be back.
And beaming in from St. Louis, Eli LaChance.
Hey, guys. What's up? Pleasure to be here.
And we're going to be chatting about Masters of Horror Season 1, celebrating its 20th anniversary. And we will be talking spoilers. Thanks for coming on the show. And welcome. Jay, this is your first time in the doc's office. Thank you so much for beaming in. You and I have known each other for quite a while. We met at a Horror Hound convention ages ago, and now you're a staff writer with the magazine. Is Horror Happens still an active entity?
Horror Happens just jumped back into activity. I can thank my fiance for that. We just put up a new website, and over the summer, I had a chance to tally up the guests and find some interviews I missed and start coverage again. But AC, I got to be honest with you, it starts with you back at a Horror Hound 2012, if I recall correctly, and I still look at the pictures and what you did, and I appreciate it so much.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing space with us. And I'm looking forward to chatting about this one because I know you've had Mick Garris on your show a number of times.
Mick Garris had this idea for a horror anthology TV series for a long time. And him and Keith Addis and Andrew, I could be wrong, we look up real quick, Andrew Dean, they were kind of the brainchild behind it. They went around, they wanted an uncensored view of horror, and they wanted the idea of these horror directors, mostly veteran horror directors, who had started at the Masters of Horror dinner, which was semi-annual, if I'm correct, out in Los Angeles when everyone would get in town. He wanted them to be able to tell tales with almost no restrictions. So he wrote, and he ended up producing, and he brought on a whole bunch of names, all the way from like a Larry Cohen to Lucky McKee and everything in between. So it started that way, and it spurred into 2 seasons, and then a 3rd season that a lot of people don't talk about.
Well, it became something else. It became a whole other show, Fear Itself, which we may, in fact, talk about during the course of the conversation. But yeah, this is one, I'm not going to do my usual origin stories because I think I know how we all came to this one for the first time. It was either on Showtime or via the physical media releases. Tim, let me bounce down to you. Did you kind of follow them as they came out, or did you track them down in physical media? What was your experience?
No, so my experience was a little different. I started getting back into horror and specifically collecting horror movies probably about 2 years after these were on TV. So when I started doing that, and that's when I would still frequent the Best Buys, they had the individual DVDs, and there were some names I already knew, caught my eye, picked those up. It's also around the time Mother of Tears was coming out for me, so I had learned that these movies get released on Amazon UK sooner. So they had actually had a box set of all the releases of Masters of Horror on Amazon UK. So picked that up because money was tight back then, and yeah, it was pretty life changing. I wasn't familiar with some of the directors yet. Some of them I knew and loved. So it was just super enjoyable for me when it finally happened, about 2007, 2008.
Nice. And Eli, and when I threw out the list of options to come on the show, this was one that caught your eye. What was it about the Masters of Horror that you're like, yeah, I want to talk about that one?
I love cigarette burns. I was 15 when these came out, and it was at the time that I was very much getting deeply into horror movies. I always was as a kid, but like, you know, when you turn 15, suddenly everything becomes like a badge of identity or whatever. And I couldn't watch them all because they were like, you know, $20 DVDs, which is a lot when you're 15 years old, and the video stores didn't have them. And for the kids watching, we didn't just stream all of our TV at that time. And so I'd seen Cigarette Burns because my uncle had it on DVD, and John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors of all time. And it was always like this, like, oh, have you guys seen Cigarette Burns? Whenever you talk about horror movies, and no one had ever seen it when I talked to people. And so I saw you were doing the whole season. I was like, shit, I've never watched the whole season, and I always meant to. And, you know, as time went on, now that it's easy to watch them, I just never got around to it. So I was like, oh, man, this is going to be exciting and cool. So I was just excited to experience all of them for the first time. I think I'd only seen 2 of them, and I only remembered one.
Oh, wow.
So these are all new for me. And I had a great time.
That's cool. I had not seen any of them since I saw them during their initial run. I had not gone back to visit them. They were kind of like ones that I was checking the box, and then, you know, the next bright shiny object would come along, and I'd be like, okay, well, I got to see that. And so yeah, when I saw there was 20, I also just can't believe that it's been 20 years. Like,
yeah, that's crazy. I was like, I was 15 last year. What is happening? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, but we didn't have, like, you know, cable or internet. So, like, I don't know. It was hard to get them. So now it's exciting that I could just do that at my house. Spend nothing. They're all on Tubi.
That's right. That's on Tubi, which is insane. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jay, like this was Mick Garris bringing together a lot of the directors that he had hosted at his Masters of Horror dinner parties. And they are a list of shining stars in the firmament as far as horror goes. And yeah, I'm sure, Tim, like that was the idea, was to attract people who maybe weren't familiar with these directors' work, but certainly had heard of their names before. And it kicked off with Don Coscarelli's Incident on and Off a Mountain Road in October of 2005. Don Coscarelli is famous for his Phantasm series, as well as Bubba Hotep and the Beastmaster films, all of which are great fun for me. But yeah, Eli, let's kick things off with you. Like, what was your feelings about Incident on and Off a Mountain Road?
Well, initially I was excited about it because I saw the Joe Lansdale based on a story by, which I tried to track down for this, and I could not find a copy that would get to me in time. So I did not read the short story. I wasn't as dazzled with this one, and I'm a Don Coscarelli fan. So I don't know if I'm the perfect person to start out the discussion for this particular one, but yeah, it was good. I like the sort of idea of the abuse this woman goes through, sort of shaping her survival instincts. I thought that was an interesting element. I thought the idea of Moonface was cool and interesting. And there's one moment that I found particularly horrifying when she accidentally traps the woman. That to me is probably the most upsetting moment in the whole thing, because she's fighting for her life and accidentally does something horrific to someone else. There's just something and unfair about it. I don't know. I thought that moment was really powerful, but I wasn't. This was all right.
All right. I realize I should probably give a brief synopsis of what the episode is.
Oops.
That's on me. But yeah, we have a woman who is traveling down a mountain road, and she is stopped and has to basically fight for her life against some giant knife wielding monster who takes her back to his lair, and she encounters some of the victims there. And as you said, she has a history with a survivalist husband who has taught her, life skills. And some of them come in handy. But yes, it's a rather complicated relationship, let's say, with her husband. Jay, what are your feelings about this one?
Well, I got to agree with Eli. I don't necessarily know if this should have even been the opening of the series. You can go to a few other episodes, and for me, there's several that I really love. I know we're going to talk more about that later, but this is one of the ones that really didn't shine for me. However, I got to tell you, this might be one of the most tense of the episodes, though, because, and I'm not talking about what, in the present of that episode where she's trying to survive, the flashbacks with her and Ethan Embry, Bree Turner and Ethan Embry. It's fascinating to see how their relationship starts so wonderful and falls into such a pit, spirals into such a pit because of a lot of things, actually. And this is one of the great things Masters of Horror did. And it had the ability, because of being uncensored, is to touch on topics that are as prevalent back then as they are now. And that's something that really shows in this one, that tension between them as the relationship falls apart. And it was brought up in one of the commentaries or on one of the commentaries for the box set, how Ethan Embry went from teen heartthrob to muscled up older gentleman who is intense in just about everything he does now with it. It's crazy. But their chemistry on there, for me, that tension was really the highlight of that episode, and kind of scary because once you fall into that pit of belief, there's usually no getting out. And for horror, it never turns out well.
Tim?
Yeah, the first viewing of this didn't really land with me. I did like it a lot more this time around. When I first saw it, I was not really familiar with Don Coscarelli. I knew Beastmaster growing up, but that was about it. So I didn't know his name. So I wasn't familiar with Angus Scrimm either.
Right.
So I didn't appreciate that bit of casting. I did listen to the commentaries. That helped quite a bit with my appreciation of it this time. There was one with Don Coscarelli and the screenwriter, co-screenwriter, and Don with Joe Lansdale. And I wasn't really familiar with Joe Lansdale either. So getting to hear him and a little background on his work was cool. I guess this was only like a 10-page short story, so a lot of the flashbacks and Angus Scrimm and stuff is kind of original to this episode to flesh it out. But yeah, I think I was younger first viewing, so the flashback sequences didn't really land with me. It felt like it was trying to be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of thing, and that's my favorite movie, so that didn't really land with me. But I did like it a lot more this time around. It was a lot more tense, and I felt more for the characters, and good ending.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things that I want to kind of point up, and that is these little short films that everybody was doing, because each episode was about an hour. This is actually the shortest of the bunch. It's only about 51 minutes. But it gave the directors an opportunity to reunite with people that they had worked with in the past. In this case, Angus Scrimm had been in the Phantasm movies. Joe R. Lansdale wrote the script or wrote the story that Bubba Hotep was based on.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're seeing a lot of people being, hey, you know what? We haven't gotten to hang out. I haven't got the budget for a major feature, but here we're doing this small little Canadian TV show. And this is an opportunity to bring people in and work with them again. So I think that was also fun for me. It was just watching people pop up and be like, oh yeah, that's right. You guys work together. You guys know each other. I actually like this one quite a bit. I like its efficiency. I like the fact that he doesn't feel obliged to padded out to an hour runtime. You know, it feels like it's lean and mean. I don't think Moonface as a monster is, really developed much. Considering what a kind of like a striking figure he is, he doesn't have any kind of backstory other than, somebody who grabs people off the road and stashes them in his lair. I think the Angus Scrimm twist is kind of fun. In that he's, seems to be an accomplice of some sort. And I'd love to have known what that backstory is. Like, okay, did you guys know each other before? Is this all part of the deal? But yeah, I did not mind this one at all. I thought this was actually fun. And again, I like the fact that it's in and out without a lot of wasted time. And to your point, Tim, 20 years on, I'm much more invested in the relationship, because when they first get together, I actually wrote down, I'm like, I'm seeing red flags all over the place. I'm like, I don't know that this is going to be happy ever after. But I did enjoy seeing Ethan Embry, and I think Alison Brie is terrific here. So I'm sorry, it's not Alison Brie. It's
Brie Turner.
Brie Turner. Thank you.
One thing I'll throw in there, and we see it throughout the episodes, is every director had the opportunity to bring 2 cast members they had worked with. So to see Angus there, I don't know who did the second. Maybe it's the Power Ranger type monster that's in there. It's jumping off the hill into the thing. They have that slow motion jump as he goes into there. Maybe it's the actor that does that, but seeing Angus Scrimm is always great in Coscarelli's work.
Yeah, kind of to follow up on what you just said, it allowed to bring 2 American actors because it was shot in Canada. So you had to have mostly Canadian actors, which is why a lot of the faces are maybe not familiar to people, is that they are just a bunch of Canadian actors that we may not know as well from Canadian TV and things like that. But yes, they were allowed to bring 2 American actors up, and sometimes that would be the star. Sometimes you'd be lucky enough to have a Canadian star, and then you could bring up people like Angus Scrimm. But yeah, let's go ahead and move forward to Stuart Gordon's offering, which is Dreams in the Witch House. Stuart Gordon, best known for Reanimator and From Beyond and Dagon. So he was definitely versed in his Lovecraft. And this was an opportunity for him to revisit that with his pal, Stuart Paoli, who did the screenplay for Reanimator. Tim, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like this one a lot. This one's one of my favorites. Back my initial viewing, I know I enjoyed it. I don't know how familiar I was with Stuart Gordon. This time around, I noticed it's also, the writers of Reanimator, Dagon. Little disappointed Brian Usna wasn't involved. That would have been great to have him on this season. But yeah, this one's a lot of fun. I got into H.P. Lovecraft after this episode too. But I like that Stuart Gordon's always taken these stories and kind of set them in the modern setting. I think it's a lot more accessible, even though, people say they're not the most faithful adaptations. This one fits a lot, especially with the stuff the students working on. And especially the runtime, I think, adds a lot to an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. Shorter the better sometimes, but yeah, I really enjoy this one a lot.
Jay?
I got to tell you, this is, spoiler alert, this is in my top 5. This is one of those that really, I've never been as much of a fan of Lovecraft as many have been. There's some things I like of him, and he's a tremendous writer, but Dennis Paoli, Stuart Gordon coming together, you knew something was going to be there with this. It's bizarre. It's weird. There's a balance of the science and the fantasy that's in it. Because I love how he sits there. The student is trying to figure out the dimensions, and it's just a tremendous way of adapting this particular tale. And it's funny listening to the commentary with the Masters of Horror dinner on the box set. According to Stuart Gordon, his wife almost divorced him. Left him because of the baby dying, because they allowed the baby to be killed. And that scene with the face of the rat, man, it's gnarly, man. It's gnarly. But for the effects work for K&B, it's pretty damn good considering, man. You got to give hats off to them. So it's a great episode, and it offers a lot. And I was pleasantly surprised, and I liked it more watching it almost a decade since I did the episode of Horror Happens back in 2015. And if it wasn't for Dennis Paoli, I wouldn't have the Horror Happens radio show, because his quote of "Horror Happens," it's the reason why I named the show what it is.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. And Ezra Godden is our lead here, playing a student at Miskatonic University, working on string theory, and that's where kind of he realizes that his apartment is the convergence where between the two realms, and the woman below him, his neighbor, is having maybe one of the witches in the witch house. She's certainly trafficking in some dark matters. Eli, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was also one of my favorites. I watched this entire thing holding a sleeping baby, so that probably heightened the experience.
Oh, man.
I've always been a big Stuart Gordon fan. Like most contemporary readers and horror fiction writers, I have a very complex relationship with H.P. Lovecraft, but I don't see Stuart Gordon's H.P. Lovecraft as H.P. Lovecraft. I see it as Stuart Gordon. And out of all of the films in this entire cycle, I think this one, because, they were kind of put together faster than normal. They didn't have as much control as they normally do. This one maintains the authenticity of the filmmaker. Like, this is very obviously a Stuart Gordon movie from beginning to end. It's kind of absurd. The characters are kind of mean in that kind of comical way that you get in a lot of his movies, but also, like, unlike a lot of Stuart Gordon movies, this one's really, really, really tremendously upsetting. And that's not to say that Stuart Gordon movies aren't scary, but this one is like, God damn. God, like, the end of it, I was like chewing my fingernails, and then I was just like, oh, fuck, we're doing this. Okay. We're just feeding live babies to rats. All right, cool. Spoiler alert. I think it ended and I just went, Jesus Christ. So, big fan all the way around. I think it was cool. I think someone mentioned the physics element, like the physics student. And I thought it was really cool that we got a sort of visual explanation, for the kind of wacky, nonsensical Lovecraftian geometry. And I'm sure there's like a cultist out there who's going to curse me for saying so, but like, it never made sense to me. And in the movie, I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, also as a scientist, I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but I'm like, no, I'll go with that.
Well, when you can boil it down to a representation that you can translate to an audience, I think that's exactly. It's like whether it makes sense or not, you want it to actually connect with an audience so that they can follow your story. And I think you're right. And I agree with you that this feels like a Stuart Gordon joint. It feels like something that has his fingerprints all over it. Some of these less so. I feel like some of them just feel like, a director doing an episode of TV. But this one definitely feels like a little mini movie from Stuart Gordon.
I mean, there's a lot of visceral moments in the series. We haven't even gotten to Imprint as being one of them yet, but that scene where she's naked and they're making love, the composition of that scene with the back scratches, the music, the way it's framed, it's just the reaction. It's just brilliant with the final edit, and it's so simple, but it's so. Yeah, you say about holding the baby, like, you sit there and I don't know about everyone else here, but we've had our moments. And if it gets ever like that, man, it is. And then to see the remnants with the blood marks on the back, which I think is phenomenal, is a nice way to give a little tail to that.
Richard Band did the music, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Each one of the directors got to bring their cinematographer, their composers, but we would see the same people, Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger doing our special effects. We had our same production design. We had our same costume design. We had our same VFX folks. So like there's definitely a unity to the look. And I think that's maybe what I was referring to, is that there is a feel to them that feels of a whole with regard to the series, as opposed to being the little mini movies that I think horror fans maybe would have appreciated. But the fact that we do have cinematographers and composers, I think that allows the director's flavors to shine through.
I agree with that. And one other thing I'll throw out there, and not so much with Argento, because Argento and Miike are the only ones that are international in this, but Miike itself, that feels like it was made outside of Canada. The rest of them feel very much like they were made within Canada. And I think that's to have that kind of uniform with the schedule and budget and time they had, it's got to be done.
Yeah, it's impressive, and Mick Garris as executive producer, that must have been his vision all along was, I'm going to invite you to my place to make a movie. But maybe the airfare was too big for Miike to come over, or he was too busy making like 18 other movies at the same time.
True. Very true.
Let's jump ahead to Tobe Hooper's offering, Dance of the Dead. I don't imagine this is anybody's favorite, so don't feel like we have to bang too heavily on that drum. But it's set in a wasteland where an apocalypse has occurred, and we have zombies of a sort that are roaming around, and people are trying to stay alive. There are marauding gangs. It just feels like a bit of a mess, and I would say both in terms of its worldview, but also in terms of its filmmaking. Tim, you and I texted briefly about the editing and the cinematography on this one.
I think it could have been a good Richard Matheson story. I'm not familiar with the source material. It is a bit of a mess. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of ideas, which I like, just not executed well. And the CGI is pretty awful in this one. I did hear on the commentary, there were some scenes cut out that may have made it make a bit more sense and less jumbled. But yeah, really it's the visuals that kill me on this one. Just the shaky editing and all that kind of just ruined the experience for me. I'm a big Tobe Hooper fan, but yeah, this one was a miss for me.
Eli.
Yeah, I actually have read the short story. I don't remember it super well. It's got this like really poetic thing where it's like, see the loopies dance. I remember that. That's very distinct from the short story. But I didn't hate this one, but also didn't like it. I know a lot of people say like, late Tobe Hooper is sort of, the weirdos like it, but it's an acquired taste, right? Like, and I like Toolbox Murders.
Murders is good.
Yeah, it's cool. This is surprisingly like, I don't know, this struck me as like a sort of like fascist Frank Miller fantasy, like you have this like, the roaming gangs and like crime is going to get so bad in the future and they're just going to be grabbing old people off the street and stealing their blood. Like, I was like, the worldview, as you said, it was gross. That said, I still think they worked in something original that I don't think was in the short story, and I could be talking out of my ass here. I have read it. I don't remember it super well, but I don't think the sort of twist where they feed the mother to the loopy circus was in the short story. And I sort of really enjoyed that element. Like, there's this sort of element of the loss of innocence, but also if anything redeems it from its sort of fascist worldview, it's this idea of innocence as a means of control. I thought that was actually really interesting and powerful. And I'm just a sucker for Robert Englund being a creepy little pervert, and I thought he was fun to watch, if not cringeworthy. Like, I don't know. So like, it wasn't that good, but I didn't have a terrible time.
Jay,
right? This is the Lifetime of the box set here, Lifetime horror right here, and it's interesting because out of all of them, it's the least sexual, and it's the if I'm correct, it's post-apocalyptic. It's the only story that's post-apocalyptic, which is a different sort of feel to what it is. But to be honest, I with Tim and Eli, I mean, it wasn't even close. And out of all of them, I actually fell asleep watching this, and I had to go back and rewatch the end of it because it just lost me in what it was doing and how jumbled it was. And to throw a cherry on that, according to Hooper, 1,100 cuts in the edit. So 1,100 cuts to be able to get this done. However, though, it's got one of the coolest effects, though, because those girls are really on fire. That was a gel at the time, according to
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
those girls. And so, you know, even with the very few and fleeting shock moments that go there, because having, you know, giving the serum for them to dance and that, and Freddy Krueger up there being an MC for the night, is no way of saving this. And so it's the mulligan for the series for me.
No, and I hear you there. And I think, you know, kind of going back to the idea of this, because we have these kind of like weird push-pull flutter edits with zooms and things like that. I think had those been used for a purpose or like serving a dramatic element, it just felt like they were kind of arbitrarily thrown in, so it became kind of just a wash of this weirdness of, you know, like Tobe Hooper discovering, you know, MTV editing and going, hey, I've never done that. Let me try that for size. I mean, watching Robert Englund in the mix, knowing that he had a background with Tobe Hooper. He was in Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive back in '77. So it was nice to see those two reuniting in that regard. What's that?
And Night Terrors.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, like it's fun to see, you know, these two legends getting to play together. And I agree, Eli. I think the story itself has some real merit to it. It has some real teeth to it. And there's a darkness that seems to suit Hooper's sensibilities. But I agree. I feel like he's trying to, I'm not sure, either show off or just experiment, but it didn't work for me in that regard. And going back to it, I remember it was probably my least favorite when I first watched it. It's probably still my least favorite, but I don't dislike it as much as I did. I'm like, okay, I see what you're going for. I see you're trying to experiment around, but you know, like I can't have every experiment be successful.
And one thing I'll throw in there, AC, is unlike Homecoming, Joe Dante, you know, this is what's ingrained in him that comes out in that episode. There's, you know, Dance of the Dead might be the only other episode that it's kind of like that, where it's dealing with something that might happen. Because according to it's 2018 when this happens, and you know, Hooper's heart's not in that kind of place. His work has never, at least for me, has never reflected something like this. So maybe it's a bad match for it.
Yeah, right. He doesn't come off as overtly political.
Yeah,
but this feels political. So Dario Argento, I actually saw this one at a Fangoria presentation or flashback. I can't remember which, but I saw it at a screening with a crowd, and all of us were like, what the hell is even happening? So Dario Argento's Jenifer.
It's a big penis, folks. It's a big penis she takes. If you look at Jenifer, I mean, for those who don't get that and haven't watched it, what this segment of Masters of Horror is, you know, this was written by Steven Weber and stars Steven Weber, and it's directed by Dario Argento. And it's a film basically about a woman from the head up that's hideous, but from the neck down is gorgeous, and what she's able to do to these men who come into her life. For me, I actually kind of love this one. It's not my top 5, but I love how awkward it kind of feels. You know, what they're willing to do for this woman and how it cycles around is great storytelling. Then you have the Argento feel to it, and the idea of pushing those boundaries. And again, international director versus domestic director. I think it says a lot, because if you look at Miike's work, you look at Argento's work, there's always those boundaries that they're pushing. But to go ahead and this was something that was a theme throughout Masters of Horror, not only actresses who could be sexual and be beautiful and seducing, but also could act. And there's not a whole lot. I mean, this isn't the most definitive character with Jenifer, the central character Jenifer, but it definitely gives something. You know, you have no voice and you're emoting through makeup. It's a pretty impressive performance, in my opinion, with it. But it's got a great shock moment that people struggle with at times because of how big it was. And little did we know that the dick that's in there is the dick that comes from Boogie Nights. So that's Dirk Diggler's dick that is with there. And I'm sorry to focus so much on it, but that's really one of the standout parts of Jenifer.
Well, and the premise for this one is that we have a police officer played by Steven Weber who comes across a crime scene, or rather a crime in progress, where it looks like, a guy is trying to murder this woman who has a horribly deformed face and a beautiful body. And he kind of takes her in because she doesn't speak. So there's no identification, can't find out, who she is or where she's coming from. And an attachment, I'll leave it to others to decide whether it's a healthy or unhealthy attachment, starts to form between those two. But I also think like we talked politics, there's some sexual politics heavily in the forefront of this one. And so I will definitely offer some commentary on that in a second. Eli, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is, I'm ashamed to say, especially after hearing how much Jay appreciated it, I hate this. I hated it. This is my least favorite of the entire cycle. I thought, I don't want to like shame anyone. I think, you made some really good points about her performance, and maybe there's something I am missing, but my takeaway was like, this is offensive. Like, this is just, it's kind of like, so you have this like power dynamic between this police officer and this poor girl, and maybe if they'd done something to establish like how like she's more of a supernatural monster, but there in any situation that the plausible deniability of like what's going on sort of makes for a really good horror story. But in this situation, I just felt that Jenifer was a complete victim in every way, even though she does eat the cat and the teenager. But I just thought it was a gross excuse to ogle some boobs, and yeah, I was not into it. So I will join the discussion if if something comes up. But I don't want to sit here just telling you guys, this is bad. But I wasn't into it.
Tim?
I enjoy this one a lot. As I mentioned, this was one of my first Dario Argentos when I was getting into Italian horror. I don't know what those cops are doing sitting there in the beginning. I can't explain that, but Steven Weber, I love him. He wrote this, which I didn't remember at the time. I'm not familiar with it, but on the commentary, I guess they said it's based on a creepy comic or something. So some of the scenes are even shot for shot from the panels that Argento did. He liked that a lot. It's got great gore. The soundtrack by Claudio Simonetti, I friggin' love. It's just 90s Argento, and I'm here for it.
90s Argento in 2005. Kind of your point, Eli. Like, this is one where what we're seeing is all a woman has to do is make sexual advances toward any man, and they will do whatever they want, regardless of their moral compass.
Well, it was confusing to me because with Steven Weber, they kept showing like the scratch on him that he got from her.
Right.
So, so I didn't know if that was part of it, but it didn't really seem to be the case with the hunter at the end. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's just it. Like, to your point, Eli, if more had been made of that men were unable to resist because of something supernatural, but it just seems like the statement is, this is the male condition, that if a woman like starts undoing your pants, there's nothing you can do. You're just literally screwed.
AC, let me throw something in here, and I think this is a common thread in the Masters of Horror series. And season 1, I'm not going to go into season 2, season 1.
Sure.
There's a lot of sexuality that goes across every episode. And if you listen to some of the interviews, and granted, it's 20 years ago, it's still not an excuse. It's uncomfortable listening to some of the reasoning behind it. And Mick Garris, and I'm not throwing shade at Mick Garris whatsoever, but Garris primarily wrote or adapted most of these stories. And that was a way for him to save on production, not to worry about that, have one writer with it. But if you had swapped out the fall from grace that Steven Weber goes through to fall into the pit, like the character who opened the series with, and you had expounded more on why he was trying to kill her at the beginning, you had swapped those narratives or given a different weight, I think it's a different story entirely, and there's a weight to it.
No, and that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because it was going to be one of my comments, as we got further in, is that, yes, there's a lot of female nudity here. And I think Steven Weber is of a generation where those are elements of, horror, that you need to have, boobs, beasts, and blood, and if you don't have those, something's missing. And I think that was the series he wanted to make, was one that kind of harkened back to the horror that he fell in love with back in the 70s and 80s. So I get it. I also feel like, 20 years on, I'm feeling like, wow, that is also gratuitous, and that is also gratuitous. And, like this is what you think the audience wants, but really what the audience wants is a good story, well told.
This sort of commentary on the sexualization of women throughout this entire series. There's I don't want to like shame anyone or like, poo-poo anything, but I do notice something about this series, just media from this decade in particular. I think everything is kind of gratuitous. I think that's sort of the flavor of the decade. Like everything was being sold to young boys my age at that time, and they were like, look, this is edgy and it's for grown-ups. You open any like comic book from that time and you'll remember it as something that was really smart, but then there'll be these moments that you read and you're like, what were they doing? Like, this is just there so they could be like, it's for grown-ups, dude. You're cool now. Like, so in many respects, a lot of things were just dumb because they were sold to teenage boys that we were trying to convince to be bastards in their own way. I don't know. That's probably ascribing too much intent to it, but there's something there.
I mean, I think that, yes, this is cable horror. This is not made for TV. This is the next level. And what makes it next level is gore and nudity. Like that's what gives it the restriction. That's what gives it the quote cachet. So yeah, I agree. It's there for a purpose, but I don't know that it was necessary.
No, it's not. And that's why Dance of the Dead, I had said, had the least amount of it. But again, if that formula is augmented, you see what happens. Dance of the Dead kind of feels boring in the perspective of what's the rest of them are.
Except you do have a lot of nudity. You just don't have a lot of sexuality. But there's nudity all over that club.
Yeah.
Every single one of these has nudity, and I think it's interesting that some of them do not lean, like very few, but there are a couple that I don't think lean into like the male gaze or whatever the same way others do. But we'll get to that when we get to those.
Mick Garris's offering of chocolat. So he finally, got his seat in the Masters of Horror. What are people's thoughts about chocolate?
I like this one. I'll say that I'm still sort of unpacking it. What's his name? Thomas.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas. Yeah, I think he was phenomenal in it. Like from the very first moment, he's doing this sort of very obvious homage to Anthony Perkins, and I thought he was fantastic. I'm still sort of at a loss to parse out what it's trying to say. It's delightfully weird. I think it's kind of queer, whether that was intentional or not, which is part of like how I'm trying to sort of sort through what it's trying to say, because I don't know, it's a strange story, which I'm sure you'll tell us about in a second. But I've worked the job that he works, and so there was also some fun watching the absurdity of a movie depiction of a food additives chemistry lab, because it's not like that at all. But
well, okay, so yes, it is about a person who is working in the industry, creating artificial flavors and things like that, and he starts to experience somebody else's experiences. He starts to taste what they taste and see what they see and smell what they smell, and he becomes fascinated and compelled to track this person down who he's experiencing their experiences, their senses through. But I do want to just bounce back to you, Eli. So what's some of the wild variations on a theme that we're seeing?
Well, I mean, it's just like a very high-tech sort of lab, and what these guys are like sitting around having lunch in the lab, like that's kind of ridiculous. Like just, and like they're given free reign to just like develop, like they're just walking in and it's like, what do you feel like inventing today? Like that is not how any corporate lab works. That'd be the sickest job ever if it was. But yeah,
You're just like,
that's
you
just
know
not,
what? I woke up thinking, let's create this today.
yeah, and then like the way they're talking about it, like, well, I know that flavor's impossible, and it's like, how do you know? Where are you coming to this conclusion from? Whatever, it's fine. I'm not knocking it at all. I just, it's one of those things where you have real life experience with a movie thing, and you're like, well, the movies, it's different.
Now, were you making the reference to Anthony Perkins because of the fact that Henry Thomas had been young Norman Bates in Psycho 4? Directed by Mick
What?
Garris?
I have not seen any of the Psycho sequels since I was a child, and I actually had no idea. So no, I was not.
Well, there you go. So yeah, Anthony Perkins plays the elder Norman in Psycho 4, but Henry Thomas plays young Norman Bates, directed by Mick Garris. So again, another opportunity.
It was clearly intentional then.
Jay, how about you? What are your thoughts on Chocolat?
It was one of my favorites from it. I like the idea of how deep it goes. And it was almost a feature, talking with him on Horror Happens. It was almost a feature that never got made. So when he had the opportunity to do as an episode, he went ahead with it. But again, I think Chocolat shows exactly, it's like the flag bearer for the series of how uncensored they were allowed to go, how deep they were go, because arguably it's got, again, I go back to the sexuality. It's already got one of the funniest scenes in the entire series with him having the orgasm and everyone coming in. It's a nice blend of comedy that goes into this. And Henry Thomas, who has that look, that young, you still look at him, and he still looks like he's, just a shade above E.T. when it comes to it with his look, him sitting there going through that. But it gets kind of lost towards the end. I mean, I understand no one's ever felt this deepest connection ever, but it's really pushing it a lot. And it kind of makes me wonder, maybe with this one and a couple others, if an hour is too long for it. An hour is too long, and it should be down to 45 minutes. But again, Showtime, you had no commercials. So if you didn't fill that hour quota, it was, and in fact, I think I was listening to the commentary of Miike's, it was like 10 pages they got, and they had to fill those 10 pages with a lot of stuff to be able to make that episode happen. So I think Chocolat kind of falls into that vein where it has potential. It's got humor and horror in it. And again, you've got an incredibly beautiful woman that's doing these things. And the POV aspect of it, I do enjoy a lot, because I think the POV aspect adds a different flavor to it in telling that character story and conflict, because at the core of it, there's that idea of the toxic masculinity and taking advantage of the woman, and kind of seeing it from a little bit of a different perspective, both literally and physically.
And we can call it chocolate. I was just being.
I like Chocolat though better. It kind of fits the sensibilities of it. I'm surprised, honestly, she doesn't say that when she with her accent.
Yeah, she's French. Why like
Chocolat?
Tim, what are your thoughts on Chocolate?
Not a big fan of this one. I don't need something to be explained or even really make sense, but this idea it never really grabbed me, and the way he finds this woman is just not very believable to me at all. But I'll stay positive. Henry Thomas, I think the only thing I'd seen him in before this, the initial viewing, had been Legends of the Fall. So I wasn't too familiar with his work outside that in E.T. Watching it now, I appreciate his performance a lot. Now that I've gotten to see a lot more of him in Mike Flanagan's recent work. So I feel like he fits into this little world a lot more now. I guess he had just finished filming Desperation with Mick Garris and Steven Weber before this. Not for me. It didn't make a lot of sense, and not in like a fun way for me. But each their own.
I like it. Like you said, he got to work with Henry Thomas again. Mick Garris also brings Matt Frewer back, who was a trash can man in the Stand miniseries. So I love it when, directors get to kind of bring back their ensemble players. I feel like I really like this premise, actually. I like the idea of experiencing something through another person's bite, but I don't feel like it has a very strong resolution. Like, I don't feel like it sticks the landing in the way that I want a short story or a short film to do. Like, for me, it's, the notion of a short film is about the punchline. And with these, to your point, Jay, like, some of these do feel like they're padded out so that you can't do the setup and the payoff and the setup and the payoff. Like, you're kind of having to string it out a little bit so that the payoff doesn't end up having the same kind of sting. Yeah. And this one, for me, it's like, well, okay, well, he tracks her down and then ends up killing her.
Stalking and killing her.
You're like, okay, it would have been interesting to, like, really go into what it felt like to be murdered, like while he's in her body experiencing himself killing himself. So anyway, I agree. It's one of those that I'm like, I like the idea. I just, I would have liked a stronger ending.
Well, I think Eli brings up something really interesting about how that office is so unrealistic. And I think that's a problem with this, is that if he wasn't a sensory scientist, and it was like, I don't know what year it was, but Ali Sheedy, when she did Fear, and I love that film Fear, because all of a sudden one day she's getting those premonitions of the killer. Now she's a psychic, but it feels more natural. This doesn't feel natural. It feels like it's almost put in there for us to, and as Tim put it, kind of explain to us, spoon feed us, saying, well, he goes through this, so he's the perfect person for it. And it just doesn't work for it. But their budgets, I think, was anywhere from $1 million to $2 million per episode. You only had a little bit to work with, and once your budget was gone, you kind of lost it. And I think they try and show the kill where she slits him up the stomach, and I think that's about the best they could do. They really couldn't flesh out, and it's a shame that with anyone who does film, when the budget goes and you're over budget, it can be a problem. So, and
everybody's operating on time, time restraints, and
I do like that they used Vancouver as an actual location.
Yes, on multiple. I love that.
To the sensory scientist element, also, I don't think it ties into, like, he could have been doing any job.
Right,
Like they called it chocolate and made him a sensory scientist, and I feel like maybe in condensing it to an hour, something got left, in the editing room of the script. But yeah, there's something missing there, because why would you have him be a sensory scientist? Call it chocolate. If he'd invented some chocolate that had a magical property that, or like any sort of bullshit, would have at least made that matter. But that aspect of it was sort of superfluous. There was a big focus on it. So yeah, I agree there completely.
Yeah, and this is Mick Garris adapting his own short stories, so really don't see how that can happen.
Maybe there were some darlings that should have been killed that he just couldn't kill, so he killed some things that actually mattered without realizing it.
Moving ahead to Homecoming, directed by Joe Dante. Certainly the most political of the bunch, and 20 years later, I'm like, wow, this just resonates all the more. The basic premise is we've got veterans who are returning from the grave, and what do they want? Not to eat your brains, not to munch your flesh, but they want to vote. And specifically, they want to vote out the current president who has involved us in an overseas conflict. People's thoughts on Homecoming?
I'll be honest, not afraid to say, it made me cry. It was one of those that really had emotional weight, and you can't say that about most of them. This had emotional weight, and Joe Dante, who is in my opinion, a brilliant filmmaker, is a filmmaker of his time, is being able to transcend. He said a really funny line that, at the time when this came out, he's making films for a microscopic budget. He started doing that with Roger Corman. So he's coming full circle in his career, doing this with Masters of Horror. It's a powerful tale. And as someone who walks by and thanks a veteran every time that I do, there's really an honesty that comes through this. and an understanding of what's going on. And AC, I think I've talked with you about this in the past. Using horror as a platform in the right way matters. And this is really a story that uses it the right way. Whether you agree or you don't agree, it doesn't matter. There is a justification within this that is powerful. And there is at least 3 set pieces in there. The diner is the one that brought tears to my eyes when the couple gives the coffee and blanket to a soldier. And even having the dog, the detail in that scene with the dog down by his feet is brilliant. But there's 3 set pieces in there that are incredible. It blends a little humor. Obviously, there's a nod to Ann Coulter in this when it comes to the actress, but it's arguably one of my favorites. And it's one that I think really worked well with the uncensored, you can do whatever you want kind of feel of it.
This one's kind of a miss for me. To me, this is like what everyone complains about George Romero's newer movies being like just hammering people over the head with shit. There are moments, to Jay's point, that I do appreciate. That is a touching moment in there. I do like the idea overall. I think this is also based on a comic or graphic novel, where the zombies were coming back to life more to oppose gun violence. It wasn't really about war. I think that's just as powerful. So I do like that element of it, but to me, I just don't care about these characters. I think if it was just the gun violence thing, I would have connected more with the brother story that they have in there. But to me, it's just like kind of bad satire. They're not even. It's like looking at The Onion now. It's like, is this even changing anything that's really going on? This is like a real headline almost. So I don't need to revisit that shit.
Eli?
I'm actually smack dab in the middle between Jay and Tim. I like this one quite a bit, but I also think it has a ton of I won't even say problems. It just doesn't align with my tastes. I really like using horror as a platform, and I completely agree there. I think there's something really smart about the analysis that political dialogue is reduced to a game with lives on the line. I thought that was universal and would still ring very true today. I thought the main character's sort of story where his brother died and it was like covered up that he was, responsible. I thought that was really powerful. I thought there's these great moments of pathos dealing with the horrors of war and the suffering of families of veterans, especially who've lost their loved ones or have seen their loved ones disfigured in some way. So, and the political cost that isn't borne out by those responsible. I thought all that was really good. What lost me a little bit with this one was I don't like too on the nose. Like, I especially don't like when you feel the need to sort of parody real life figures, not because I don't think they deserve to be parodied, but it just takes the timelessness away from it, and it dilutes the message and takes some power away from it, in my opinion. So like, the corny George W. Bush clone didn't work for me. The Ann Coulter character was a little too psychotic. And that's the other thing is the type characters weren't type characters done with respect. They were sort of caricatures. And I have nothing against type characters at all. I actually think they're a very powerful storytelling device. But these people all were sort of like Mad Magazine copies of real world people or like types of people. And so that sort of took me out of it a little bit. But I really like this one. Like, it's just, I didn't love it. Like I said, I'm right in between. I think there's a lot of good shit happening here and a lot of shit that I don't like.
Yeah, I think the cartooniness of it that you're referring to, that is one of the things that took me out of it a little bit. And I agree, Tim. I feel like this is a bit preachy. I think the message could be delivered in a very direct way, or actually just tell the story and not feel like you have to comment on it. I feel like, there's a lot of like layer on layer where I'm like, you know what? I got it. I got it, Joe. It's okay. You can just tell the story, because I think it's a powerful enough story. And I don't think it's a big leap for people to be like, oh, these veterans are coming back because they feel like they were wronged. without having, because I feel like John Tenney's character actually, verbalizes what we're supposed to be taking away from this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm okay. I got it. I don't need the translation.
Right.
One thing I'll throw in there, and I think this goes across the board for the series, is that, again, being uncensored and pretty much being in the same brotherhood, there's no restrictions. I think they had an exceptionally small list of what they couldn't do. So when they have an opportunity, you better believe the frustrations and the stigma of being a horror filmmaker all of a sudden pops out there and says, we're going to do what we want. We don't care what you have to say.
Right. And I get that. I get that Joe Dante is feeling like, you know what, I'm going to say exactly what I want to say. I'm going to poke, this administration right in the eye, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And there's a lot of freedom to that. And I applaud Mick Garris for not being like, you know what, maybe we should tone that down a little bit and just being like, no, this is the story you want to tell, go tell it. And I do like it quite a bit. I'm similar to you, Eli. In spite of my criticisms, I think it's an effective story, and I like the overall narrative. I think there's some of the nuance is not there, and I feel like it comes in pretty hard and heavy, and I think a lighter touch would have probably helped.
Yeah, could have been done with a lot better with a scalpel, but we did it with a hatchet. But the job got done.
Right.
And then let's move on to one of Dante's contemporaries, John Landis, who did Deer Woman. Oh, I see Tim shaking his head. This is going to be a good one. Let me go. Actually, let's just get right to the chase. So this is a case where up in Canada, murders are occurring. People are being trampled to death. And who could it be? Because it's happening like inside of semi-truck sleeper beds. And you're like, well, how'd the deer get in there to do that? And hey, it's in the title. It's probably a deer woman. Tim, what are your thoughts on John Landis's offering?
I'm not the biggest fan of An American Werewolf in London, so not landing at all with this when they lean even more into the comedy aspects. God, and those scenes with him trying to figure out what happened in the truck. God damn it. Yeah, I don't know. At least I laughed at the end when the guy was like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
I felt like that watching it. But yeah, this one's another miss for me.
Jay.
I think Tim's right on this. It's painful to go through with this. It's Landis in his mind and now uncensored and whatever he wants to do with it. But one thing I'll throw out there, I like the casting of Brian Benben. I like that because Dream On HBO, he's like a perfect guy to be able to pull off this kind of humor with it. Other than that, it's so dumb and it's so stupid, and it's funny at times, but it's just that last line, Tim, I couldn't agree with you more. With the realization I'm such an idiot, and it's great. It's great. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to this one.
Eli?
It's stupid. The premise is sort of insensitive. I don't know if anyone's read The Only Good Indians, but that's one of my favorite books, and it's written by indigenous author, and having this sort of story told from a couple rich white guys' perspective, it's dumb. It's just dumb. Like it's clear that they didn't respect the source material or their story. I don't want to say source material. They didn't respect their story. And so I just hated everything about it. I don't have anything good to say.
And I'm going to be the guy who's like, I thought it was kind of fun. I agree. I think Brian Benben is one of those unsung treasures. Like, I'm kind of like, why didn't that guy? I mean, he was the lead in a series, so he was doing fine. But why he didn't go on to become like a major star is beyond me, because I think he handles this tone perfectly, because it's ridiculous from the get-go, and we see that when we have, a guy in a deer suit marching around with a woman over his shoulder as part of his, scenarios. I'm kind of like, this is ridiculous. Everybody knows this is ridiculous, but he is anchoring it, with a gravitas of the way he looks at the world. He sees that the world is kind of insane. And so the way he approaches it is with that kind of sardonic sense of humor.
I also realized that this does the same thing that Jenifer did, where it's like all she's got to do is smile at you and you're in.
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
Yeah, you're kidnapped by, like, she walks in and like none of these guys are like, "Are you mute?" They just all are just like, "I'm awesome. Let me tell you about me." And it's just like, dude, no wonder you're having such trouble getting laid. Like, fuck.
Yeah. I don't think this one is pretending to be anything more than it is. I suppose it's worth noting that it's John and Max Landis providing the script, and Cynthia Mara as our dear woman. I think she has a great presence. But to your point, Eli, like she really isn't asked to do anything other than be beautiful and smile. But I like the fact that she's, eventually revealed to be kind of a minotaur.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that was fun. Wasn't expecting that. Yeah, let's move on to John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. Gavin Schmidt, who was unable to join us today, said that it is his favorite Carpenter film of all time. Not the best, but he loves Cigarette Burns with a burning passion. And it sounds like, Eli, you share a similar feeling. Yeah?
Oh, I adore this movie. I found this movie, like I said, I was 15. The movies that sort of made me a horror fan, I'd seen way too young, and they were all John Carpenter movies. Halloween, The Fog. The Fog is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Thing, Prince of Darkness. I love the way Carpenter handles evil, his whole idea of evil. There's something in a John Carpenter movie where he does not feel the need to explain what evil is, and that makes it worse. And I think any other storyteller who tries this, it's a very hard thing to pull off, and many people fall on their face trying it because it just comes off like, what? But John Carpenter is an expert at telling you exactly what you need to sort of gesture at what's going on or what the evil is. Like in this, I guess we know it's demons, but is it demons? Like the producers of this film are, are you saying it's the devil? And it's like, well, no, but yeah, the evil takes many forms. I think that's the line, is evil takes many forms. I also am just a sucker for any story that allows me to interact with an in-universe cursed object. I think that's a very fun gimmick every time that sort of heightens the stakes, because if the story is successfully overcome your suspension of disbelief, you have to sort of do the opposite to finish watching it. You have to be like, okay, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. And maybe, as a hardened adult, I don't have that experience with those sorts of things anymore. But there's a book I read recently that has a last page twist that kind of made me realize I was interacting with a cursed object. Still freaked me out. I love it. So I love that aspect of it. I love Udo Kier. I love the sort of the idea of like this contagious insanity through media. I think that's incredibly interesting. There's so many good things about this. I love this movie.
Awesome. Tim.
Yeah, this is a big winner for me. John Carpenter is one of the ones I was very familiar with going into this series. I grew up with his movies. My mom loved him. I saw The Thing at my first sleepover at my cousin's. Grew up on Halloween 2. Kind of fell out of movie watching a bit, in high school, and this is when I was getting back into it, as I mentioned. So to me, there was no John Carpenter lull. I had grown up with all his best, and now I'm back with this big winner. So I was just like, fuck yeah, when I watched this one. I've been a big fan of the Boondock Saints too, so happy to see the lead actor in a nice role. Man, he looks young. Rewatching this now, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, this hold up good for me. I like this one a lot.
Jay, what are your thoughts?
It's one of my favorites. I'm a big fan, and I'll go with what Eli says, of these cursed items. I love The Ninth Gate, In the Mouth of Madness, those kind of projects. And Cigarette Burns was the first one going back 10 years that I still have the Masters of Horror, and it always stuck with me. This is the one that really had that lingering presence and getting over the last 10 years, getting to know some people. For those who have not met Udo Kier, his eyes are exactly what you see on the cinema. He is incredible. And to have him paired with Norman Reedus, and from what listening to different things, they got along great on there, and they work so well off of each other, and it shows on the screen. To be honest, though, the music is incredible, but the feeling I get, and I think it's recently been brought up, I don't necessarily know if John Carpenter loved doing this, but his lack of love really came into something that I think for most people is the best episode of Masters of Horror. They shot around Vancouver. They had a lot of cool things. If you are a cinephile, you love the theater, you love your intestines, you'll love this kind of film because it blends story so well. It's dialogue driven. It blends so well with a nice payoff in the third act of it.
I think anybody who is a film fan understands that kind of compulsion to find the things you can't see, to see the films that have been taken out of circulation or removed from your grasp somehow. We all kind of identify with that passion for seeing that one movie that nobody's ever seen or that only a few people have seen. And I love the idea of cursed films. There was a little film called Antrim not too long ago that really does that well. You were talking about the music. This would be a great time to talk about our great theme music for this entire series. Edward Shearmer, who won an Emmy Award for this theme. I was like, that's awesome. But it is one of those that, you know, I was tempted to fast forward through the opening credits. And I'm like, I love this theme. I love the whole opening montage so much. So I watched that 13 times. And I'm like, I really like the opening titles, both the visuals and the music. But I'm big fan of that.
Yeah, me too. I was happy. I was looking up the composer too, and I was happy to see that it won an Emmy. That's incredible.
What else has he done?
Didn't seem like anything like horror related.
Okay, going back to the episode, I love the fact that there's a character who has stacks and stacks and stacks of paper in his office, and it is a single movie review.
That's right.
He's almost completed. I'm like, I could totally relate to that.
I think that's also just that's another great like subtle moment of unease too, because it's like he walks in there and you're like, oh, this dude has papers everywhere, and that reveal comes like towards the end of their conversation. It's like, oh,
you've been
this thing's driving people
in the middle
nuts.
of this guy's mind, you know, having this conversation. But yeah, I really do like this episode. I wish it had a little bit more of I wish he'd leaned into a more kind of ethereal, doom-laden ending as opposed to, you know, Udo Kier feeding his guts through the projector. That felt visceral. It felt like a horror thing to do, but there was something about everything else that he was doing that felt more kind of Prince of Darkness, where it's that kind of cosmic, unexplained, just doom. But, you know, if you're going to have somebody feed themselves through a projector, that's pretty cool too.
I think the budget plays a lot into this because this was the lowest budget of all the episodes.
Oh, really?
But honestly, AC, I loved how it ended. And I loved how it ended because it felt like it was very self-contained and it was held there. I mean, you know, there's some really wicked humor in this episode as well. When Udo Kier's throwing ice cubes at the fallen angel and the way he's talking, and supposedly he was told to continue to make fun of it and make fun of it and make fun of it. And it comes through. Udo has that arrogance in his character of what he's doing, that madness and obsession. And I think the obsession and how it plays out with the love story that's intertwined with it, I think plays out more better than something like we saw with Dance of the Dead, where you're dealing with a post-apocalyptic thing. I think it's great in the theater, and being someone who loves film and cinema, it makes me have more of a comfort watching that end.
Well, and I think all our Walking Dead fans, like you said, Tim, are going to be like, whoa, look at Norman Reedus.
I watched this with my wife and she said, whoa, that guy's on The Walking Dead.
Yeah, watching him as a little youngster getting started.
Yeah, it's just a little baby.
So moving ahead to William Malone's The Fair-Haired Child, calling William Malone a master of horror is a bit of a stretch of the definition. He's known for some B-budget fare from the 80s, like Creature. And then he did like things like Fear.com and the House on Haunted Hill remake. So I like that he gets kind of like included as perhaps a lesser known director that people might go and seek out. But he's definitely a deeper cut as far as the roster goes. But in terms of the episode itself, what are people's thoughts? Jay?
It's one that really didn't resonate with me. I like the twist at the end, how the deal is done. AC, you'll go into more of the synopsis in a second with it. But it really felt like, again, like the Lifetime CW of the series. You know, there's not a whole lot behind it. And it just moves along, you know. And this was a problem I think they had with Masters of Horror. Scheduling and people not wanting to do it, because John McNaughton's tale, Haeckel's tale, which we'll get to still, was supposed to be Romero, and Romero didn't have an opportunity to do it. So you brought in different people, and maybe it was a lack of options. Nothing personal against. I think the remake of The House on the Haunted Hill was a great remake, but it just doesn't fit, AC, to what you said as being a master of horror when it comes to it. You know, there's not a whole lot for me here with this one.
Tim?
I enjoy this one as like an episode of TV. It's fine. Kind of subverts your expectations a little bit in the beginning. What do you think's going to happen? Lori Petty, I think, is good and creepy in this. I do like the look of the demon or whatever it is. I think it's effective. The little crawl chase scenes in the basement. It works as an episode of TV for me. I enjoyed it. Nothing spectacular here, but enjoyable for me.
I agree. I think it's a solid effort. The basic premise is that there's a girl who gets kidnapped, taken to a deserted music academy, and finds that she is thrown into the basement with another person who we think has also been kidnapped. And we realize that the two adults who are masterminding this scheme are perhaps not what they seem, conducting some experiments to bring something back from beyond the grave or beyond the veil. But I also like this, and I feel like you assessed it very astutely, calling it, just kind of like solid TV horror. Like you got a creature, you got a nice setup, and then a mystery, and then a resolution. I feel like this one does have a nice reveal at the end that is a twist on a twist. Eli?
I was really compelled by the opening of this, even though it does feature the most annoying, not true sort of wives' tale of horror fiction. Chloroform might knock you out, but you're not gonna just huff a tiny bit and go down. Like, it just doesn't work like that. Also, muriatic acid is a poor choice for disposing of bodies, but I guess they were cleaning bones, so actually it'd probably be fine. Whatever. Muriatic acid still like probably
Eli,
a poor choice.
I said that to my fiance too. I go, you just don't pass out from that. It's like it takes time.
Trichloromethane, it's gonna take you like 5 minutes. Are you gonna wrestle someone for 5 minutes with a rag, like regularly?
But we're fans. We're fans,
But I roll with it. It's a trope. I roll with it, even though every time I see it, I'm like, I like the monster a lot. I hate the flashbacks. I think they bog the whole thing down, and I don't think the mystery is nearly as rewarding as they wanted it to be. But I really thought the monster was cool, so I go along with this one, even though it's not my favorite.
Well, and it does kind of do that trope of flashbacks being in a different, have a different feel to them. Like it has that kind of like weird CG black and white.
I did like the sort of dreamlike quality of them. I just thought as for the storytelling, like they weren't necessary. So like, even though like I liked the sort of weirdness when they first happened, as they went on and I figured out the whole story, I was just like, I don't care, dude. Let's keep going.
I like our cast. Like you said, Lori Petty's solid. Always nice to see Tank Girl back in the mix.
That's who that was.
Lindsay Pulsifer is our young lady. Let's jump ahead to Sick Girl from Lucky McKee, who at this point had only done May. And so for him to also be considered a master of horror was quite the vote of approval. May is a really great movie, and it might seem like, okay, this guy has a very bright future. It's funny 20 years on to be like, oh, Lucky McKee did not, quite become the master of horror we might have anticipated. But what are people's thoughts on Sick Girl?
AC, can I throw something into that real
Please.
quick? So when I talked to Mick Garris and Lucky McKee back 2015, the promises of what the woods would be that he sold them is, I think, the big reason why he's on this. According to them, it was something that was promising, because after May, they thought that the woods was going to be great, and it didn't end up that way. So it's listening to you say 20 years later, he really didn't achieve it. It's an unfortunate statement, but to a certain extent, it's true.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all thought he was going to be, somebody of the heft of an Eli Roth or Rob Zombie, like somebody whose name we would continue to follow for the next 20 years. And I think, only folks like us are kind of like, oh yeah, Lucky McKee, absolutely remember, his early 2000s efforts.
I love this movie. This is one of the few of this series that I threw a 5-star rating on Letterboxd. This is fantastic. I really like May. I think it's the same leading lady, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me for not doing my research. I've been a little busy. But yeah, I think she's great. I like May a lot. I like stories about bugs and people turning into bugs. So like that really works, fires on all cylinders for me. I thought it was kind of funny that her misogynist best friend was like, if you want the ladies, you got to get rid of the bugs, because every feminine leaning queer person of all genders that I know would absolutely fall in love with the person with a zoo of insects immediately. Like, so I thought that was kind of funny. It was like, oh, this guy doesn't have a clue. But at the same time, like, there's like that wholesome, just like cheesiness to it that really works. Like the romance of these two people who seemingly wouldn't have ever found, a person finding their person. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was sweet. My wife asked me the night after I watched a bunch of these, like what they were like. And I was like, well, there's this like lesbian love story where they turn into bugs and it's really wholesome. And she was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I like this one. I like the creature feature aspects of this. Everyone's pretty, I enjoy them. The characters, they're pretty well developed. Even, her friend, he fits that role nice. They have good banter, good rapport, I think. Lucky McKee to me was a weird choice. Even at the time, I was familiar with May. My sister absolutely loved it when it came out. I think it's got some pretty sharp dialogue. It's funny when it's supposed to be. The horror elements work. So yeah, this is another win for me.
And Jay?
It fires on all cylinders. It's one of my favorites as well. I love the practical and the puppeteering of the bug and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's got a violation in it that it actually fits for the story. That final scene of the bug feeding on them as they're knocked up with all the babies that are coming, it's very tragic in what happens to that character. And I think Aaron Brown and Angela Bettis are perfect for it. It was supposed to be Angela Bettis was originally supposed to be a male character. It wasn't supposed to be a lesbian story.
Really?
It was supposed to be a lesbian story, and Lucky McKee decided to make that call with the script and bring Angela Bettis. She is phenomenal. She's so awkward and so funny, and works so well off of what Aaron Brown's able to do with that love interest. But it's got everything you want in what you hope for a Masters of Horror episode, plus a lot of great music throughout. It's like the pulse of it.
Well, and I like the fact that we do get two kind of cult actresses being given a nice spotlight. Aaron Brown had been working for several years under the screen name Misty Monday, and then had just been transitioning to using her name Aaron Brown. And so this is a great showcase for her. Angela Bettis obviously had made a big splash with May, and then in the Carrie remake. And I love the fact that she's kind of doing this weird kind of cartoon voice. I love that she's playing this nerdy entomologist, and that they get to have. I think it's the only episode that passes the Bechdel test, where like it really their relations have nothing to do with any men at all. And the guy who's just there to provide color commentary and just kind of show what idiots guys are. So yeah, I like it a lot, and I think that it is something different for the series, it feels like it has a different quality than most of the others.
I thought the subplot with the ladybug, the little girl, and I thought that was both really endearing, and when it goes dark, very honest in a way that I think would be uncomfortable for most filmmakers to approach. And I thought they did a good job with it. Like I thought, you realize that this was in like 2005 when like it was still normal for South Park to like call everything gay and like everyone was fine with it. Like, I don't know. People forget how homophobic people were just 20 years ago. So like seeing this, cause like I said, I hadn't seen this before. I was like, damn, this, I'm surprised I didn't hear more about this. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope it's been claimed by that community. They're like, here's some representation that feels genuine.
I have a friend who raises spiders who I am showing this movie to immediately because they are going to love it.
One of the things it does great that we've had trouble with some of the episodes is everything serves a purpose for the narrative in this. And even the neighbor who is grumpy, your stereotypical neighbor, it serves the purpose of the transition to what, Erin Brown's character is going to be after she's infected with it. And we've seen it with Psycho, with the shower, we've seen it in different places where we feel comfort. That bug in the pillow and it's a new nightmare unlocked because you're sitting there all of a sudden it just takes one little prick and that's it. You're done. Yep. So it's a great fear factor.
Well, and I like the fact that we were talking, about subtext. I feel like I like the fact that they don't come right out and say it, but like, how things change when you move in together.
Right.
And, like suddenly the dynamic shifts. And I'm like, I like the fact that it's just there. We're not like going to go, oh, things change sometimes when you move in. Like nobody actually has to come around and say it. So I like that. Heading around the corner here, heading into the final lap, we have Larry Cohen's Pick Me Up. This is one, I'll just come around and say, this is one that I really liked. It feels lean and mean. It feels like it's a novel concept, but not an outrageous concept. And I like the fact that all the performers seem like they're having a good time. You got a story of a serial killer who drives a truck and picks people up and murders them. And you have somebody who poses as a hitchhiker and catches rides and kills people. And those two are on a collision course with one another with Fairuza Balk stuck in the middle. People's thoughts on Pick Me Up. Tim, kick us off.
I don't think this one landed with me on my initial viewing. I don't think I was really familiar with Larry Cohen at the time. Definitely am now. And this is another one with the casting. Love the casting of Michael Moriarty in there. I guess this is the only thing Larry Cohen directed that he didn't write. It was a challenge to himself to see if he could do it. But I still feel it has like that Larry Cohen humor to it. I enjoy this one a lot. Was never bored. It's got some good scenes in there. I don't want to ruin too much, but good stuff.
Well, and David Chow is the writer, and David Chow has done some really good stuff if you check out his filmography. Okay. But yeah, Larry Cohen's absolutely a fave of mine, with Q and It's Alive and The Stuff. Eli.
I loved this movie as well. This is one of my favorites of the series. I think Michael Moriarty doing this sort of almost Archie Bunker impersonation through the whole thing as the truck driver is awesome. That scene with the gun where he's buying the junk food, like I think that scene is like one of the best things in this entire series. Yep. It's very darkly funny, weird, outside the box without ever leaning anywhere super speculative. I mean, not that this could happen in real life, because if there were just serial killers like this everywhere, like none of us would be able to leave our house. But it's fun. It's a really fun, surprising premise, and it runs with it and does not miss a beat. I think it's just a good time.
Jay?
Michael Moriarty, his character is my favorite of the entire series. As someone who lives in New Jersey, goes to New York all the time, he has it down. The way that he talks to him, there's no bullshit between them. You know what? You might think you're better, but I'm better. I know I'm better than you. It's a tremendous chemistry and back and forth. And the way that intertwines and then releases when they get to the hotel and they're chasing after Fairuza Balk, it's wonderful. It looks good. It's got that tension to it. It's got that humor when they're in there, when they're in the hotel and in the next room over, it sounds like sex, but it's not. And it's got so many funny moments with it. And he's just a great actor. And that's Larry Cohen at the core of it. His humor, his attitude, everything that goes along with it. But that scene in there, No Country for Old Men comes to mind when he's across there with the quarter. It's, this is years earlier, but he's like, take the gun. What do you think? Take the gun. It's just brilliant in the way that it just is executed.
And I really like Warren Cole, who's playing our Walker character, the hitchhiker. He seems like he's doing a Brad Pitt from Thelma and Louise impression, but doing it really, really well. Both he and Michael Moriarty come at it from a place of total confidence. And, I don't know a lot of Warren Cole's work. And so for him to be facing off against a heavyweight like Michael Moriarty and completely owning it was great. And I like that Fairuza Balk is bringing her, badassery to the play as well. It feels like she is going to be a worthy foil for both of them. And I was kind of bummed that she didn't get to put up a bigger fight as it turned out. But, what are you going to do?
It's got one thing I'll say, it's different from the majority episodes. It almost has like a Western feel to it.
Sure.
And it's not just the costuming, but it's just the way that they approach her with these larger than life attitudes that they do with Jim and Walker and everyone else.
John McNaughton, another person who's not necessarily a master of horror. He's done Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and then The Borrower, and then Wild Things, and then Mad Dog and Glory. And you're like, really? But I think to your point, Jay, like he was probably somebody that got a call and said, hey, we need somebody who has some horror cred, who, is going to fit within the roster here. And he definitely, has earned his stripes with Henry for sure. But yeah, he's got Haeckel's Tale, which is based on a Clive Barker story. What are people's thoughts on Haeckel's Tale? Jay?
Yeah, Haeckel's Tale was one of my favorites. It impacted more watching it now than it did before. This is another instance of sexuality and performance meeting each other. There is some, next to maybe Imprint, it's a lot. It pushes it a lot in what they do with this. The threat of the undead, and it's great because one thing we haven't really talked about is throughout the series, there's nods to horror masters. Like, for example, in the graveyard scene of Homecoming, there's a tombstone with George A. Romero's name on it. There's little things to it. So you feel it in Haeckel's Tale what Romero might have done with this. And it was written by, correct me if I'm wrong, he was written by Clive Barker. This is a story off of Clive Barker.
The story is Clive Barker, and Mick Garris does the
he adapted it. Yeah. But it's a great tale, a wonderful period piece. And the twist at the end, this is another good twist at the end that makes it a lot of fun for it.
Cool. Eli?
I like this one. I don't love it. I think it's actually like, my impression was like, this is something I like. You know how sometimes you'll like things that you think are kind of bad? That's kind of how I felt about this. And I don't mean to, like, I feel bad because since Jay was just like, I love it. But yeah, so like going into it, that Hammer Frankenstein setup, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be one of my favorites, a total surprise. And then it gets into where it's going, which sort of happens in some unexpected ways that don't really have like a lot of unity to the main story of this guy's quest. Like, yeah, there's this sort of like convenience to where it ends up. And the whole time, I will say, to the credit to the ending, the whole time I'm like, what was that narrative device? Like the setup with the necromancer in the beginning, like, is the moral of this story you don't want to bring your wife back because you'll have orgies with dead people? And then like it comes back around. And I think there's probably like some themes of like sexual liberation that are really interesting in the Clive Barker story, but in the hands of the director of Wild Things, it just was kind of pervy, like all these like zombies standing around like feeling her up while she like performs for the camera. I was laughing at it. Like it just didn't work for me. I thought it was silly, but in a way that was really entertaining. So this one wasn't for me, but I also really liked it. I also think there's some smart shit happening, and there's some dumb shit happening too.
Tim?
I enjoy this one. I fucking love Clive Barker. He's my favorite author. It would have been nice if he was more involved and had adapted it. And a George Romero Clive Barker collaboration would have been like a wet dream for me. But I enjoy it for what it is. I do like the effects. I think this is one of the episodes with some of the more standout practical effects. I do like the little zombie gore scenes at the end. This is actually, I think, maybe the only Clive Barker story I haven't read. I think it was in a short story collection in the early 2000s, but I do know the bookends of the episode are not in that story. So Mick Garris added that little comedy, especially the ending, little comedy there, which I don't know if it's too much, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. Yeah, especially a little change of pace with the Victorian setting or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say that my sentiments lie pretty much where you all are expressing. I did like seeing John Polito showing up because he's such a urban character at all times, and so to see him in kind of this rustic Victorian quality, I'm like, but you still feel like, you know, Casper from Miller's Crossing. So what am I going to do? I did enjoy the performances. It does have some interesting, as you were saying, Eli, like some comments about like women, or it's like, yeah, well, they got to have it, you know, like, you know, I can't satisfy her. And so she's going to have to once a year, you know, have her big necro gangbang, and then we'll go on for another year. And then, yeah, we get the zombie baby, and I'm like, okay, I guess.
Sure.
It feels a little goofy, which is not necessarily McNaughton's stock in trade, but you know, I think it works fine for what it is. I land kind of squarely in the middle on it.
Yeah, I feel like it could have been great, but it's just what it is.
Yeah,
enjoyable hour.
And our final effort is from Takashi Miike, Imprint. It is the one that did not screen on Showtime, notoriously, because it was too much for cable TV. I'm not going to argue with that. This is definitely, you know, for my money, the most intense of the episodes. Basically, we have a character played by Billy Drago, inexplicably played by Billy Drago, who travels to find his long lost love that he left behind, and he ends up with a prostitute who has a facial disfigurement, and she tells the story of what happened to his long lost love, but also tells her story as well. What are people's thoughts about Imprint? Jay, kick us off.
I perform this in his over-the-top way he handles every piece of dialogue. You know, Billy Drago, I hated his character in this. I hated his character. And I love him as an actor, and listening to him talk about it in prep for this episode, you got to love the guy, because he got off the plane from a job in Morocco, and he came right to Japan to film this, because this is the only one, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only one that's filmed outside of Vancouver. Yeah. So there's an authenticity that it is, but yet we live in a world that's in Miike's mind. This right. is a blend of traditional and a blend of what it's like, what he's able to create with his team. It's a brutal piece. The visceral aspect of it and the idea of this story and what the women went through, but it's also an empowering tale. I mean, it's just fucked up. There's just a lot to deal with this one, and I can understand why it wasn't shown in the States. It's very transgressive. It really goes ahead and goes above and beyond with it, but it is one of my favorites because it's Miike, and very few things Miike does I don't like, so I'm on board with it.
Tim?
Yeah, this film to me is amazing. When I first saw it, it was like nothing I had ever seen before prior to that. I think this was the same summer I'd seen Cannibal Holocaust for the first time, and both of them were like, yeah, both of them I was like just kind of sitting there afterwards, not sure what I had just watched, but I had to watch them again the next day. Imprint had that effect on me. I don't love everything in the episode, but it just pulls you in and you're in that world. Yeah, I can't say enough about the visuals in this film. You can take out whatever you want. Nothing's really explained in a fashion like that. That could be Billy Drago in the beginning. He seems to have kind of a similar kimono on that takes the little girl in the beginning, and that's why he's suffering now. There's a lot to think about, a lot to look at.
Lots
I
to
love
unpack.
this. Yeah.
I guess I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts on Imprint now. This is the second time I've been invited to a podcast to discuss a Takashi Miike movie that I'd never seen before, and it's very difficult to do. He's his maximalism is very effective. He somehow has his cake and eats it too. There's a ton going on in this little movie. It's an hour long, and I feel like we could probably discuss it for 3 hours just to keep track of everything happening in this film, and it all works. It's terrifying, particularly that scene where he first arrives at the brothel, and he's talking to her, and the ghost is behind her shoulder. Like the ghosts that are throughout that entire thing gave me very Fatal Frame vibes. I don't know if any of you guys play that game, but I felt very much like I was in a Fatal Frame game through the whole opening sequence, which created fantastic unease. So yeah, I really liked it.
AC, if I throw something in, I mean, because it's done on a practical set where they had rain most of the time throughout the production, it gives that great atmosphere to it. And it's a great mix of the more practical effects as well as the production design. What the one occupant of the brothel goes through with the needles is just disturbing. It is. And what's one of the things that's remarkable with this, because this is primarily done in Japanese, what they had to learn to do English was remarkable. So there's so many achievements on this particular one that you applaud Miike and you applaud Mick Garris for bringing him on, because it's a very complete episode that's batshit crazy, but offers so much for any kind of fan of horror.
Yeah, I have to say, this was one that I wish had been done in its native Japanese. And I'm like, I would have much rather had the subtitles, which is nothing against our actors, it feels like it's already otherworldly enough. Let's just go the whole hog and take us to that true space where they're speaking Japanese and we're hearing a Japanese story.
I agree with you on that. I also just want to add, I love the soundtrack of this episode too.
Koji Endo, man, he's amazing.
I feel like Miike got invited to the party and said, okay,
let's do this thing.
Exactly.
Ballpark, man, uncensored. Let's do it.
Exactly. He was like, you know what? I'm going to bring out all the taboos and I'm just going to smash them one by one. And everybody's going to have a bad time and you'll thank me for it. And it was one that, again, when you heard that it wasn't available, kind of like what we were talking about cigarette burns, like, well, I got to see it. And then I watched it and I hadn't seen it since I saw it 20 years ago. But I remember just being disturbed by it. I couldn't remember any of the particulars. And as I watched it this time, I was like, okay, this is so much more than just shock theater. Like, there is some definite commentary going on.
Oh, yeah.
You nailed it, Eli. Like, he is having his cake and eating it too. He's delivering us a true horror tale, but also he's saying there's some real meat on these bones and we should talk about these things that happen in a system that perpetuates this kind of treatment. So I was really knocked out by it. And, it's unfortunate that it's in keeping with Miike's bad boy attitude, where he's just like, nope, I'm going to do everything to make you uncomfortable. That's my job as a filmmaker. It's one where you go, maybe just a little less, Takashi. Give us a break.
This is the only one that has that trigger warning out of the entire series. This really is that you might go with Haeckel's Tale to a certain extent, because that could be a trigger warning as well. But this really is, and it's brilliant. Whoever made the decision, AC, to make it the season finale,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Well, and I don't know what the story was in terms of like how these were being shot. You know, if like they finished one and then just moved on to the next.
Yeah, the way they were screened, that order, they were filmed in 10 days. Each one had 10 days. So like Coscarelli's was first, then they moved on to the next one. So yeah, I think they had a 120-day shoot, and Miike, I'm not sure how long he did for his episode.
He's just hanging out in Japan going, you know what? I'm not on your schedule. I'm on my schedule.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a question, Tim, that's a good question to ask is the quality of the episodes affected by being at the start rather than at the end? That's because you look at Miike's now and you understand he's in Japan, so you want to put his at the end. But is that why we feel the way about Don Coscarelli's at the beginning?
Could be.
Were these all the same crew?
Majority crew.
Yeah. I think it's undeniable that the just working together, like in any TV show or shoot, you get better as you go. Not that I've worked on any, I just know that from reading about things. You know, I'm like, I'm an expert. Like I sit on the couch.
Or having like, you know, been in the world where you work with people.
Yeah. I hate that world.
Well, yeah, exactly. Why can't I just hang out with people I want to hang out with? Speaking of which, this has been an amazing conversation. I was as I was sitting and watching, I knew that this was not going to be the experience I had the first time, you know, where you got to talk about them kind of as a collective. But I do remember when they were coming out, like people were saying, hey, what did you think of this one? What did you think of this one? Let's go ahead and wrap up our final thoughts, do kind of our top 5 favorite episodes. Jay, let's go ahead and start with you.
To be honest, after this conversation, my number 5 changed. I was going to go with Chocolat, but I think Chocolat comes off the board. And I think Sick Girl is number 5 for me. Tremendous by Lucky McKee. We talked all about it. Number 4, Imprint. Number 3, Dreams in the Witch's House. Number 2, Homecoming. And number 1, Cigarette Burns. By a landslide.
Awesome. Tim?
I think I'd put Imprint as number 1, Cigarette Burns number 2, Dreams in the Witch House number 3, Pick Me Up number 4, and yeah, I think Sick Girl makes the top 5. Like the effects in that one.
Eli?
So I don't have like a ranking on which ones I liked best because it's just not the way my brain works. But what I would say are like the 5, you know, overall best, like unranked. Cigarette Burns obviously is on there. Dreams in the Witch House, Imprint, that's 3. Sick Girl is phenomenal, and Chocolate. That's my top 5 of the series. Yeah, I loved all of those.
Great, and yeah, I would say Imprint's probably my favorite. Followed by Pick Me Up, Incident on and Off a Mountain Road. I'm actually going to give a vote for Dear Woman just because I think it's fun. And then I'm gonna give Cigarette Burns a tie with Sick Girl.
Can I change mine? I would like to swap Chocolate out for Pick Me Up. It's hard to keep track of all of them.
It's a tie for 5.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you all, man. This is amazing. Thank you, audience, for hanging in there and listen to us yammer on. I hope you all go and check these out. They're still out there living in Streamland on Tubi, which is hilarious and awesome. And a public service announcement. If you watch Tubi with the Brave browser, it will cut out all the commercials. So there you go. Little PSA from the Dr. AC. Or you could just get them on Blu-ray and not have to worry about any commercials.
I think the box set AC has the ending of Homecoming they didn't play, and Imprint I think has more of Imprint than what they offered before.
Nice. Depending on your financial place in life, watch Masters of Horror however you need to. And Jay, thank you for coming on. It was lovely to have you in the mix.
Having me, guys.
Eli and Tim, thanks for coming back. Looking forward to having you all on again very soon. Until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.